This is a relay, and this is a relay panel. As you can see, it is an absolute mess. In 1936, if you wanted to build a telephone exchange or calculating machine, you would need to wire together thousands of these, with no guideline, no theory, just trial and error. So all the world's best machines at the time were being built on nothing more than educated guesswork. Then came this man. Smartphones, computers, cars. There is no way you can run to escape the influence of this man, Claude Shannon, a relatively unknown pioneer of the 20th century and a man pivotal to the digital revolution. Without Shannon, your world would look unrecognizable. Claude Elwood Shannon was born on April 30th, 1916, in Petoskey, Michigan. His father, Claude Shannon Sr., was a first-generation European immigrant who was a businessman, attorney, and probate judge. His mother, Mabel Wolfe, was a second-generation German immigrant who was a principal at Gaylord High School in Gaylord, Michigan. From a young age, Shannon expressed extreme interest in science and mathematics, excelling at both while at school. At 16, Shannon enrolled at the University of Michigan and later graduated with a double degree in electrical engineering and mathematics. During his undergraduate days, he became fascinated by Boolean algebra, a branch of algebra named after the 19th century mathematician George Boole. It had been a field that remained unused for the better part of a century and had no real-world applications at the time. Boolean algebra, unlike regular algebra, focuses on logic, and it seeks to determine if something is true or false. For example, is 3 greater than 2 and less than 10? We can check both conditions and find that the answer is true. Shannon's interest in the field would follow him to MIT, where he would undertake a master's program and where he got the opportunity to work on a differential analyzer under the wing of Dr. Vannevar Bush. At the time, differential analyzers were cumbersome pieces of mechanical machinery that were used to perform integration to solve differential equations. Solutions would then be used to model the movement of ballistics, electrical circuits, vibrations, control systems, and fluid flow. These machines were extremely useful, but they had to be reconfigured extensively for each problem, which was a fundamental limiting factor. The problem stemmed from a complex network of rotating shafts, gears, and clutches, which controlled the function of early analog computers. They would simply take up so much time to maintain and configure, which would significantly reduce the actual computation time. So Shannon began to think about a sleeker method of computation. In 1937, he would have a summer stint at the legendary Bell Labs in New York. It was here where he would connect Boolean algebra to electronic circuits to exploit a binary on-off logic to control circuits. This idea would culminate in his 1937 master's thesis titled A Symbolic Analysis of Relay and Switching Circuits. Its impact is so profound that it has been labeled by some as the best master's thesis of all time. In his paper, Shannon outlines the application of Boolean algebra to simplify complex arrangements of relays, which were used as switches before the invention of transistors. These relays were the bread and butter of early computers and were also extensively used in telecommunications. As mentioned, relay systems were essentially built through trial and error, as they did not have a theoretical framework on how these large relay systems should be built. In his paper, Shannon begins by defining hindrance, which has a binary value of 0 or 1. He defined a value of 0 when two nodes A and B are connected and 1 when they are not. This kind of definition is contrary to the more intuitive approach of stating a connection as 1 to describe on, while using 0 for off. The way that Shannon described this use of hindrance suggests that he had been using a derivative of electrical resistance as the actual binary value. For simplicity, we will use the more intuitive convention. Now, the two basic combinations of such variable nodes are in series, where the electricity has to flow through both switches A and B to reach the other side, which Shannon interprets as switch A plus B, and in parallel, where there is a fork in the road, and at least one has to be on for electricity to flow to the other side, which Shannon interprets as switch A times B. He also states some assumptions and rules relating to the binary outcome, which will be useful for the next example. And using these rules, he's able to reduce this complex system to this one. How did he do this? First, he used his rules to write an equation to describe the circuit in terms of Boolean algebra. This leftmost node here is quite simple, and we can simply label it as W because it serves as the only path that electricity can flow. In the next section, we can see that the bottom node is labeled the same as the first node, but with a little prime here. This shows that it is the not of W. Hence, if W is on, then W prime will be off, or 0. On the right here, we have an embedding of these two ideas. Firstly, we can say this is in parallel. Then we can see that these three are individually in series, but they are in parallel with each other. Hence, we end up with this. From the raw expression, Shannon begins by factoring out W prime from here and from here by using this. But since this is the not of W, inside the brackets we get a 0 instead of a 1. Then we do the same with X and then with Y. And now we use this theorem twice to reduce this to this. Now we expand the brackets like so and use the theorem to make Z prime 0. Now we can build the simplified circuit term by term and find that we get this, a significantly simpler circuit that is crucially equivalent to our original one. This is the core idea of the paper, and throughout the paper, Shannon explores further examples and applications relevant at the time. Overnight, Shannon revolutionized electrical engineering. No longer did people have to create circuits off educated guesses. Now they actually held a theoretical framework as to how they should build complex relay circuits and ways to optimize and compare designs. The workflow of designing circuits changed, and electrical engineering became more mathematical. Circuits could now be designed, optimized, and proved on paper, saving time and money. AT&T's Bell Labs quickly adopted these methods to design faster, cheaper, and more reliable telephone switches. But this was not the sole implication of his work. Since the circuits could be understood as performing Boolean algebra, it is implied that logic could be built into these systems. This led to the introduction of logic gates, and would lead to the creation of the first digital computers. And to this day, the whole digital world rests on this notion. From your phone to the internet, and your toothbrushes for some reason, it cannot be understated how immensely impactful this paper was. It essentially laid out the foundations for the digital revolution. In 1938, Shannon's paper was published in the Transactions of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers, and quickly its brilliance was recognized. He would go on to win the Alfred Nobel Prize for his work, cementing himself in history. And there we have it, relays and Boolean algebra, the connection that paved the way for the digital age. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Until next time.